Well, good morning, BETT, on this wonderful Saturday morning. Let's start the ball rolling. My name's Dominic and I'm the assistant head teacher at Costello Technology College, and I'm here with Techsmith today to talk about our experiences of screencasting within the curriculum. And it's entitled Casting Out to Students Using Technology. And I guess when I was thinking of a title for this, I was very much thinking of a fishing trip. One where you have to cast that lure out to the students as well as you possibly can to get them really engaged in learning, and certainly that's what we've been seeing through our use of Techsmith and Camtasia. So a little background about our school. As I said, I'm assistant head teacher at Costello Technology College, been there for 5 years now, and we're a third phase specialist technology college, just over 1,000 students on roll, and we have a really strong culture of innovation within the school. Really working exceptionally hard to try and utilise and embed all the new learning technologies to support learning outcomes within the curriculum. We, just by Ofsted, are an improving school with many good features, and we're looking forward to our next Ofsted inspection that's likely to happen this year, that will see us going to a good school with outstanding features, and a lot of that is down to the technology that we've been using within the college. How has this been successful? Well, I think it's been through a very strong, passionate vision with regard to technology, and that's been strongly led throughout the school over the last few years to see the realisation of what we're trying to do. We're a well-developed school with regard to our e-strategy, and we have had a huge investment, I think, in terms of ICT infrastructure over the last few years, which really paramounted, I guess, this summer with us winning the ICT Register Showcase Award for the work that we've been doing with parental engagement. Some of what I'm going to talk about this morning links in, I think, quite closely with that. We're also recognised for our work with regards to Key Stage 2-3 transition, and we'll also talk about how screencasting has been a benefit to that as well. So I wanted to start this morning by really thinking about this age that we all live in, the 21st century learning environment, a really, really diverse learning landscape, I think, that we're seeing now. As I said, it's not what software does, it's what the user does, and I think that's really important. Hopefully some of that's going to come across this morning. Students today, we did a survey back in school about 2 weeks ago, just on the volume of technology that students use. 1,000 students, 65% of them have an iTouch. 85% of them have social networking in Year 7. Bit of a worry when you're looking at Year 7s maybe accessing Facebook and some of those other technologies. But for us, what it really secured is that students have an expectation of the use of technology. And if we as a school are not really embracing that technology across all walks of life within the curriculum, then we're really doing a disservice to our students. It's about what we can do to actually secure those outstanding learning outcomes for our students. It's really, really important for us. So I want to talk very quickly about shaping our vision at the college. I've got a lovely image to show you, and that's really what we don't want to end up with. We don't want our students at this college to be a product of education. It's about what we can do to make sure that every experience they get within the classroom, as far as possible, is one that's really personalised for their particular learning needs. And certainly through the use of Camtasia, which I'm going to be talking about in a moment, it's really helped us to start personalising a much richer and dynamic curriculum for our students within the college itself. And that vision, I think, is something that isn't just seen by the students, but it's also seen by the staff. Our staff are also very, very important to us, and staff CPD is one of those dilemmas as a senior leader in the school where you want to commit as much resource as you can to staff development, but you're also conscious that they're passionate about teaching, and they're always moaning about having to go to staff meetings and time to actually develop their own skills. So with regard to a lot of the IT skills development, we use Camtasia and a lot of screencasts that our staff can really pull when they need to. So for example, we've got lots of screencasts to do with our MIS, our Sims for new staff. Everything to do with Sims is online on our learning platform, so staff can actually be the learners accessing all of that content. That's really, really important for us. So I want to talk about Camtasia at Costello. As you know, Camtasia is a screencasting product, and for us we use it in 3 core areas. We use it with students, we do that to support assessment for learning, revision, giving them online how-tos and tutorials, as well as being able to use screencasts to reinforce and consolidate learning that's actually taking place. The other area that we're using it quite heavily is obviously staff. Staff obviously using it to create all the resources that our students actually see, but also we use it as a very, very powerful training tool for staff, and I'll come on to that in a minute. We've also got our parental community. The ICT Register Showcase Award that we won this year was really focused on how we as a school are working with our parents to support teaching and learning. We know that we've got our government targets in terms of online reporting, and for us it's not really pushing out the data. It's about ensuring that our parents are confident in supporting their own children with the learning that takes place. What if a student gets stuck with their homework? What resources can a parent then access to train themselves up so they can be more empowered to support the child with learning at home? And that's really where we're using sort of Camtasia. So we're using that for a lot of e-learning opportunities, but also with regard to communication. But I want to start really by talking about screencasting more generally in education. I think for me, one thing I'm quite passionate about is that learning is for life. It's not something that just happens within a formal learning environment within the classroom. It's this notion of anytime, anywhere learning. And certainly at Costello, I think one of the things that we've worked exceptionally hard at over the last few years is ensuring that there's high quality teaching and learning going on in the classroom. And I'm sure many people will have heard about Sir Dexter Hutt up at Nine Style School talking about his sigmoid curve of school improvement, that you do what you do, you're going to get what you get, and you'll start plateauing out with regard to school improvement. And we reached a point probably about 18 months ago where we recognised that if we carry on doing what we do, we're going to get what we've always got, and what we've always had isn't good enough. So what we wanted to do was to improve. And we did that by actually looking at how we could develop and utilise more technology within the classroom and outside of the classroom, because for us the home learning opportunities are the ones that are really, really empowering, I think. We're doing all we can in the classroom, but we don't want learning to stop. We want to make sure that students carry on that learning continuum outside of the classroom at home. And certainly Camtasia for us allows us to put together lots of really media-rich content so students can engage, develop their knowledge and understanding outside of school, so when they come back into lessons, our expectations quite often have already been superseded because students have been at home watching some of these screencasts and they're coming in with a much higher skill set than we were expecting. It's been absolutely fantastic, and we'll show you some examples of that in a minute. As I was saying earlier, this very rich virtual environment that our children today live in day to day creates, I think, a very, very high expectation for what they expect in school. I think quite often, if we're not embracing that level of technology to the level they're expecting, they're going to become a little bit demotivated. And certainly for us, it's about what screencasting can do to enhance the process of learning. What we have found through empirical research now within the school is that students, in terms of their various learning styles, really, really benefit from screencasting. Whether they're predominantly a visual, auditory or kinesthetic learner, there is something there for everyone. And we found that to be a huge benefit. The things that we get feedback from students with regard to screencasting is the fact that they can often pause a screencast, go away and consolidate that learning by going and doing some other task-based activity in the classroom, come back, unpause, carry on, is really, really powerful. And that is such a motivational tool for students. Students need to see success to be successful and to raise their own expectations and confidence as to what they can actually do. And we found through the screencasts that we put together that they can take it at their own pace, so it's very much self-paced learning. Some students will shuffle through the screencast to particular areas of their interest where they need to consolidate and maybe reinforce that learning and actually get the most out of it, whereas others might be starting right at the beginning and watching the whole 5-10 minute screencast itself. I think what we've found is that students have been really, really keen to watch these screencasts. And when we've asked them why, it's a number of different things. On one level, it's the fact that it's seen as quite funky. They love downloading through our syndicated RSS feeds on the e-learning solution we have in place, pushing it out to their iTunes account, putting it into their iTouch. We're seeing now certainly in IT lessons where we've got lots of how-tos on, for example, Dreamweaver, Illustrator, Fireworks and so on, that they're coming in, putting their iTouch next to the computer, headphones in, watching a screencast while they've actually got the workflow on the machine, pausing it, consolidating it by doing some activity and then revisiting it and carrying on. And what we're seeing is that students are developing higher level skills more quickly, and it's accelerating their learning. And as a result, the level that we're seeing in terms of them pushing in their own skill set has been absolutely fantastic within the curriculum. So how do we actually use it? Well, one thing that we looked at when we were purchasing Camtasia for the college was there's got to be really something in it for everyone. Your average classroom teacher who may not be the most fantastic IT-enabled person still needs to be able to access this technology. How can we actually do that? Well, the simplest way with Camtasia is using the PowerPoint plugin. One thing we found is that all departments and all staff have huge volumes of PowerPoint presentations already in the department, whether they use them in the classroom environment for teaching or whether they've got some PowerPoints there that they use for revision. And what they actually do is put them through PowerPoint, using the plugin, recording the Camtasia screencast through PowerPoint and overlaying the narrative so it's all time synced as a result of that. Then they're exporting it whether they push it out as a flash file to embed them in the learning platform, pushing it out as an iTouch or an iPod friendly format so we can then syndicate it through an iTunes feed so they can pull it through. And I think the power there is that it's very much a push or a pull technology depending on how the students are using it. Our RE department has been fantastic in terms of putting together a whole raft of revision screencasts. They've got a syndicated feed through iTunes for it, and they ensure, they're quite insistent that the students who are using the technology at home are also subscribing to that feed. As soon as that student goes home and resyncs that device, that new content is there, and it has been amazing to see students last year with the RE exam, an hour before, going through, having their own iTouch out, doing some quality revision prior to entry on that exam. That's been absolutely fantastic to see. Obviously, a lot of our staff use it for tutorials and how-tos, so in terms of instructional technology with regard to some of the software applications. And that's not just within IT. Our technology department have been using it for obviously computer-aided design type work. We've been using it in science with regard to data logging. We're using it obviously with regard to maths, and I'll show you some of these examples in a moment. But I think one of the more interesting and innovative uses of the technology is how we can maybe use it for student feedback. We have quite a few staff now that are starting to basically look at, for example, an essay that might be submitted in Word, put it through Camtasia so that rather than just giving scribbled comments and feedback, you're actually talking through the work and there's a discourse back to the student. And that gets pushed back to the student as a flash file, on an attachment, on an email, something like that, which really does add a huge amount of value. In terms of teacher workflow, we found that some staff really do prefer dropping the pen totally and doing it in this way, because they've actually found that they can get through so much more work in terms of marking by doing it electronically, that A, it's saving time, but also it's adding a lot of value to what they actually do with regard to the feedback that students are actually getting. And of course, we have a few staff that are actually using it to record live sessions within lessons themselves. And I've got an example from maths to show you in a moment. And I guess with any UK school, we're very much focused on outcomes. So in terms of your typical old Ofsted chestnut, what's the impact of what we do? Well, I think it's pretty clear. Firstly, for us, we've seen that students are much more motivated and engaged in learning. They have a much greater confidence through the screencasts that they've actually been able to see, and as a result, they're really proud of their successes because they're working at such a high level. But I think also the fact that students can personalise their own experience of that screencast. And I'll show you an example in a moment where we've got a PowerPoint where it's got the table of contents, so that a student, if there's a discourse for say 20-25 minutes, that they can actually go through and shuffle to a particular point in that delivery that's more pertinent for them. That's really powerful. The fact that they can pick and choose when they want to watch it, pausing it to maybe consolidate with some off-task type activity is a very powerful way of learning. It's certainly for us raised expectations over what is actually achievable, and that again inspires learner confidence. Certainly in terms of engaging, we found that in your typical classroom where maybe there's still an awful lot of teaching to the middle with regard to assessment for learning, we found that screencasts help to really personalise that, to give support materials for the less able to students to make sure that they're really well supported, but also for the really high flyers, putting together specific screencasts that are really pushing the envelope in terms of developing their knowledge and understanding has been really, really important. And again, it brings that teacher resource to the student 24/7. We're finding that most of our screencasts do actually get accessed by students outside of curriculum time. And that, again, is, I think, very, very powerful. And of course, assessment for learning. The fact that through maybe feedback they get from the teachers through screencasting, they've both got that summative and formative feedback, very, very important in terms of raising standards within the school. And certainly for us, we're going from a position where we were 51% A-star to C 4 or 5 years ago to now sort of mid to late 70s with 84% A-star C this year. So these types of technologies are having a real impact. The other interesting area though is staff development, looking at how we can look at staff CPD, screencasts to support our CPD programme. We don't want to be in a position where our staff have to attend training sessions at a particular time of day. We want to have it on demand when they most need it. For example, going through and changing a student's password on the network so they can actually log on to engage in that lesson. They need to have that information now, and if they can't remember, they can pull these on demand. Induction training for new staff. We've got an area on our learning platform that all new staff have to visit, and through a lot of screencasts there, they go through a virtual induction process along with all the face-to-face induction that we have within the school. And we quite often use it to disseminate key information from staff meetings. I think one of the dilemmas in the school is that staff meetings, when they happen, they're there to really secure the vision of the school. Often, certainly in our school, they're said with an awful lot of passion from the senior leadership team is how we can actually secure that for maybe a member of staff that joins the school midway through the year, so they can actually go back and revisit some of those earlier presentations. So that's really, really important. And I think for us, the impact on that is staff feel a lot more confident using the technology because they've got the training needs, the access to it to ensure that their needs are met when they want to get that training delivered. And it gives us a really, really flexible training model because they can pull that content actually on demand, and that's really, really important for us as a school. And they can revisit the content. If they haven't used it for a couple of months, invariably they tend to lose the edge. They can go back and actually reconsolidate that learning for themselves. And it really helps us to make sure that that vision is secure. So I'd like to, at this point, just go through and highlight and showcase just a few examples. I'm going to come back to these tips in a moment. And this first example is
X
math screencast.
plus 4. It's going to be just like the previous one, but it's been moved up 4 spaces. So those two graphs are parallel to each other. The reason they're parallel is because they both contain y equals x. This one's parallel to that one because it's been moved 4 spaces up the axis.
Okay, so that gives you a flavour of the type of screencast we're actually using in the maths department. I'll give you a bit of background about this production. This was one of our maths staff during their normal lesson using a tablet PC that was connected through onto our network, and they're using a software package called Geometry Sketchpad, and they're looking at equations and graphs. And that was a live presentation during a lesson that was outputted then as a flash file that we've then embedded into the learning platform. And I'll show you what this content actually looks like in a moment. So that's one example from our maths department. I talked about staff CPD. We use SIMS as our management information system. We've used Camtasia to put together lots of training resources for staff on how to use our management information system. Some of these are accessed through our induction program, others when they need to maybe reinforce and consolidate some knowledge when it comes to, for example, writing reports. I'll give you a flavour of this one as well.
If you right click, you can then display codes, which shows a window showing all the valid SIMS attendance codes that you can use for your register. Once you've completed, make sure that you click on the Save button.
So a little bit more polished than the previous example. Obviously you've got the playhead at the bottom where you can skim through, pause it if you want to go and actually consolidate some of that work. And again, through the actual screencast, we've used some of the tools to actually zoom in on various areas to reinforce the learning points that we're trying to get across. So again, that's really, really important in terms of staff CPD. Going on to revision, we talked earlier about how we use it to support revision for our students. We know that so many departments have huge numbers of PowerPoint resources already, and it's about, right, how can we bring those up to date? How can we give them a second lease of life and create a really interactive resource? going through creating a revision screencast.
Of ICT and the law, and we're going to take a look at the Copyright and Patents Act. Software copyright laws are really, really important. Be aware of these things. Software, as we know, can be illegally copied and distributed, and it's a...
So again, shuffling through to any particular point, as well as the PowerPoint slides, the information we got there, we also got the key narrative from the teacher over the top. And that's really, really important for students to then consolidate their knowledge. We tend to find that they'll be watching these maybe on their iTouch, at home or on their browser, and most of them will have sort of pen and paper and maybe mind mapping some of these ideas to consolidate that. So a really, really fantastic way of putting those screencasts together. And in terms of our how-tos to consolidate learning, sometimes we use it to run through the work maybe that we're expecting them to do, to give some of the less able some support. So this is some work they were doing in PowerPoint, talking about how to set up quite a complex spreadsheeting model within PowerPoint, within Excel, sorry. So again, really, really important for us to be able to use the technology, because there's only one teacher in the classroom of say 20, 25, even 30 students. But by using screencasting technology, it's as though the student has their own teacher all of the time for that lesson, in terms of shaping that lesson, working through the example with them, being able to pause the teacher, which they can't do to someone actually standing in front of them, going over and consolidating something else while they go through. The other example I want to show you very, very quickly is an example that I think really, really does demonstrate the flair that the PowerPoint plugin within Camtasia can actually have. And that is that you can start using your PowerPoint slides, the titles, as a table of contents down the side here. So this was basically a PowerPoint presentation that I put together for a new module that we were doing with Insider, one of the IT qualifications, that was looking at a spreadsheet model. And this is about 10 minutes in duration. But you can see that each PowerPoint slide has actually been given a link down on the table of contents. Clicking on that will actually resync my screencast to the appropriate place, so I can just get that part of the content. Which is, I think, really, really important. You may have a student that has 90% coverage of the knowledge and understanding. They want to get just that 10%. This allows them to do that really, really effectively. So you can see that this example, just to make it a bit more personal as well, we've put the picture-in-picture facility in there as well. So we had a webcam feed pulled in, and I'll just give you a few seconds flavour of this particular delivery as well.
So, transport itself, as we know, they're going by coach, and the coach costs outlined here £25 per driving hour, £20 for every hour at the destination.
Okay, so you get the idea in terms of what we can actually do. Now, where we really, really use this type of technology is with some of our courses that are a bit more distance learning oriented. So, for example, we run adult education courses where they're working towards Microsoft Academy exams, for Microsoft Academy, Microsoft Office User Specialist exams, and so on. So we started to develop a lot of e-learning content to support more distance learning based courses. And quite often, one of the challenges there is how do you make that a friendly, personable experience? And certainly the picture-in-picture type approach of that works for us really, really well. And I think for us, one of the big things about using Camtasia is the real flexibility that we've got in terms of how we can output the final screencasts. We use Frog as our learning platform, and Frog can support a manner of different solutions with regard to hosting. So in this example for our IT training resources, we've just embedded Flash files back into our learning platform there for staff to access. We also have syndicated folders on our learning platform where we generally drop H.264 content. So they're then syndicated as iTunes feeds, so they can subscribe to those, and that pushes out the new content. So for us, it's a really seamless solution. We don't have lots of technical expertise needed for someone to go away, create a screencast, and actually host it. Because that's one of the dilemmas in the past, I think, that educationists have got to grips with how to do it, but then there's been an issue of hosting and then delivery. But now, with very blended solutions that we've got, this is actually very, very achievable within the school. So really, really exciting for us there. I want to finish, though, on the future, because I think for us the future is really, really exciting. and that is where do we go next in terms of how we start untapping Camtasia within the school environment. And for us, I think we really want to make a lot more use of development of quizzes on the flash-based content with regard to our screencasts. As some of you may know, at the end of your Camtasia, or even through a midpoint screencast, you can put in some flash-based quizzes to actually consolidate some of the learning that's taking place. We really want to get to grips with that a little bit more. I think the other thing for us as a school is making sure that we develop that level of confidence within our staff to make sure that they can actually start producing screencasts on the fly during the lessons. One thing that is fantastic about Camtasia is the very easy workflow. The last thing we want is for a teacher to deliver something in the classroom and then have to re-deliver it to create the screencast afterwards. We want them to be able to do that in one shoot, if you like. And make sure that we then go through and develop our screencasts to support parent engagement. Screencasting is a fantastic way to actually look at supporting our parents with learning in the classroom and at home. So it's going to be a really exciting development for the school. So open to questions. Thank you for your time this morning, and we look forward to seeing you soon.